religious theological approach. Our religious beliefs play a crucial role in shaping our rights in the society. It helps us perceive things in knowing what is right or wrong, or what is just or unjust. If we follow the story of Old Testament in the Bible of Christians, it shows how man was made on the image of God. So it is said that man deserves a life as he has the higher value of worth compared to the other living, and it cannot be denied as it is given by divinity. The theological approach also said the importance of loving your neighbor and how equal we are in the eyes of the Lord. This explains that the rights of the people of the society should be equal and no one is above to anyone.
In theological approach, there is an answer of the questions, what are the foundations of human rights and are human rights universal? According to Rein Cassin, one of the members of the original United Nations Human Rights Commissions, which drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, stated that the concept of human rights comes from the Bible, from the Old Testament, and from the Ten Commandments. According to the book entitled The Theological Approaches of Human Rights, the very foundation of human rights in the Bible are the doctrines that contributed to the understanding of the people are the doctrines of God, salvation, man, the kingdom, ethics, government, and sin. So firstly, doctrine of God. God, as described in the Bible as someone who loves all the people and who has a special concern for the poor, the weak, and the oppressed. He is known for his justice. He loves justice. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne or his reign. God commands his people to seek justice, correct oppression, defend fatherless, plead for the widow, and to defend the cause of the weak and the fatherless, maintain the rights of the poor and the oppressed, and rescue the weak and the needy from the hand of the wicked. All of these are the foundation of our rights to seek justice in the society and our rights to equality of all rights, and that should not be taken away by anyone in power. Secondly is the doctrine of salvation. Salvation became economic and political liberation. Christians in part of the world have experienced economic exploitation and political exploitation. This gives hope to the people that there are certain people out there as instrument by God that will give them the salvation that they deserve. Other than that, they recognize salvation involves totality of life and aims the transformation of the whole creation. Salvation involves deliverance from evil, destroying the works of the evil one. The salvation is not limited to the religious aspects of life, but it also involves all aspects of life, including abusive and oppressive human relationships. Next is the doctrine of man. The idea of human rights presupposes that something in the human makes him valuable and worthy of protection. That something makes him unique to the other creation. That is why most people agreed that it is permissible to eat and kill animals, but killing and eating people is an act with severe punishment. From the biblical perspective, what sets man apart from the rest of creation is that man is created from the image of God. This fact also makes man worthy of protection. Next is the doctrine of the kingdom. It is said that in order for us to be a citizen of God's kingdom is to be submissive to his righteous rule. We need to spread its righteousness in the midst of an unrighteous world. These laws and commandments give us a picture of society as God intended it to be. He wants Israel to be a society based on justice, economic equality, and the protection of the weak and vulnerable. Next is the doctrine of the government. According to the Bible, they explain that God instituted government with the following mandate. Firstly, to commend what is right. Second, to punish those who do wrong. And thirdly, to promote human well-being. In the doctrine of sin and evil, we all know that the fall of the man is not limited to its relationship with God. It also includes its fault of his relationship to the others, coming under the law of Satan. As a result, we live in an egoistic world in which many seek to get their own way and fulfill their own desires, even if at the expense of the needs of other people. That is why our society needs a law that keep people accountable and to protect the weak and vulnerable against those who are stronger. There is a need for national law to protect the individuals and groups and international law that protects weaker nation from more powerful nation. There are two objections or criticisms against Christian involvement on human rights. Firstly, human rights is a secular movement. These objections stated that human rights should firmly grounded on individual autonomy and self-determination. The objection stated that there will be tendencies for human categories that can be used to defend the behavior of the Christians that are sinful. There are also categories that could be used against Christians when they try to speak out. Example of this are the clashes in the rights to life, such as abortion and euthanasia, sexual orientation rights, and rights to family. Example in the institution of a civil servant in the Netherlands. There is a discussion on whether they have the rights to refuse on conducting same-sex marriage because it is against the religion. But recently, it is stated that they do not have the rights to refuse and they will be fired if they do. Second objection is the concept of standing up goes against biblical teaching. This position holds that Christianity is taught that instead of demanding rights, one should give them up willingly. Paul gave up some of his rights as an apostle for the sake of the gospel. Another example is Paul's exhortation to the Corinthians that they should rather accept being wrong than start a lawsuit against a brother. Finally, the Bible commands Christians not to seek revenge when we are wrong, but instead do good against the wrongdoer and overcome evil with good. The most common rebuttal of this statement is that the Bible makes distinction between our own rights and the rights of other people. The Bible emphasizes our responsibility to the other people while calling on us while trying to forgo our own. John Stott summarizes the position well when he concludes, the Bible says so much about defending other people's rights but little about defending our own.
Clearly, there are many different religions, but why is it that the human rights are more fixated on the thought of Christianity? Simple. Christians hold the highest population in the world. Following the Bible of the Christian does not invalidate the beliefs of the others, since it all boils down to the thought that every one of us should live with dignity and freedom that all of the religions agreed. There are also criticisms to this approach. Are religions that supported death penalty, slavery, or may against same-sex marriage or abortion. These things are kind of negotiable in the state, because even though we supported the theological approach in shaping our lives in the society, there are things in the Bible that contradicts to the rights that should be given to the people in the society.
The natural law theory. It was stated by the ancient philosophers and Roman law jurists that the act of the man is driven by the law of nature. But what exactly is the law of nature? Law of nature refers to the natural instinct and natural relation we had to the other people, our natural intellect to know what is right and wrong, or what is just and unjust. Thomas Aquinas considered natural law as the law of right reason in accordance with the law of God. He stated that being a good person is one of our roles in the law of God, that even though not everyone has the opportunity to know who is God, to know and follow His commandments, but still God already embedded to our beings the natural law, and that is what we follow in order for us to attain the law of God. He stated that God gave us the feeling of knowing what we want. It means God already gave us the inherent rights that are inalienable and cannot be denied by the states. He said that God gave us the intuitive desire for the good things that are meant to be good to us. These desires of us serve as the social impulse to live peacefully with other creatures. All actions that lead to harmony in society is just and right, and all actions that harm the society is purely unjust. According to John Locke, he characterized human beings in the state where people enjoyed living with liberty, dignity, and property, which are considered as natural rights. Natural law theory is very influential that it became the standard of the state enacted positive law. Example of this is when the Nazi army was persecuted of the mass killings and various offenses. They tried to put up a defense that stated there is no crime unless there is a pre-existing law condemning the act as crime. But the judges of the persecution looked back to what the natural law has stated, that killing is an offense against humanity, and even without law, it is still a crime.
Historical theory. Uh, in this theory, it is said that the rights are not granted by the state, but through historical evolution. It is also stated that human rights did not exist through the efforts or creation of man, but it is natural consciousness of a man to know what is right and what is wrong. In recent uh, in recent time, rights were made by law, but in the past, rights were based on customs and usage. So it means that all of these years, man evolved. Their tradition, culture, usage of common, and also uh, throughout these years, the human rights evolved. As the action of man progresses, the human rights had its progress also. The human rights progresses because the concern and the action of the people in the society rise and is evolved throughout the year.
The functional or sociological approach to human rights stated that human rights derive from the people in the society and the state rather than just a basic principle. It means that human rights will serve for the social interest of the society. Human rights have many definitions, but in sociological sense, it means that any discussions of human rights should be um, firmly linked to the capacity of the state and society at large to guarantee the enjoyment of those rights. That's according to Madsen and Vershegen 2013. It means that it does not end by giving definition, but it must be legally embedded in the society, where the poor, marginalized, less privileged people can have the access of these rights and the society, and not just for the benefits of the rich and privileged people. In order for this to happen, societal institutions must operate first for the interest of the people in the society, such as schools, hospitals, courts, families, and government. That's according to Madsen and Sharajan 2013.
The positivist theory. In positivist theory, it is stated that all the rights and laws are only valid if it is promulgated by the state. It is stated by this theory that the only law that should govern the people are the laws enacted by the state. Natural law and natural rights can only be valid if it is stated by the law in the state. It is said that this is way more effective and efficient at the end of the day, since everyone can enjoy it, but not to the extent of oppressing the rights of the others, since there is a sanction if the law will be violated. It is easier to protect the rights of everyone as it will settle down on what are the offenses of each party. This system is good as it is flexible and changing the law depends on the needs of the people in the society. This is what we currently have in the status quo. All the laws made by the legislation and signed by the government is the law that promote or protect our rights and we should follow as it has a sanction if we do not follow it. So to give you a concrete example, if you are part of the LGBTQ, you may have the rights to love each other, but unfortunately, you still don't have the rights to get married inside the church because same sex marriage is not yet legalized in our country. So, you can, in the positivist theory, you can only enjoy your rights once it is enacted by the state.
The Marxist theory. In this theory by Karl Marx, he stated that the rights of individual could only be distributed through the change of societal system and not relying on the living with capitalism. Capitalism, as he defined, as something that only few people could get the higher resource, and the people who are struggling will remain poor. And disadvantaged, they could not get the rights that they deserve. He stated that in the capitalism, everything has value, including rights of individual. The status of the citizens will divide into two: the upper class, and composed of people who has who has lots of resources or holds a lot of resources, including business, while the working class are the people who work hard to sustain their daily living or everyday's life. So, at the end of the day, Karl Marx stated that this system is unfair, as it only uh, favors to the rich people. And even though there's human rights for everyone, the people who are in power could easily manipulate these things and oppress the people working who are working hard or in working class. And and he stated that this could only be changed through communism, for equitable distribution and the resource of rights for everyone.
The theory based on justice stated that the very foundation of justice is the existence of fairness and equality in the society. Justice can only be attained if the government in the society have served the people with equal distribution of rights such as liberty, opportunity, goods, and a life with dignity. Justice must serve equally no matter what the position, power, or status a person may hold in the society.
The utilitarian theory. Jeremy Bentham, a philosopher who said that in utilitarian theory, it focuses to the idea that we should focus on the result first of such action before we consider the action if it is relevant or irrelevant. It is stated that our action should derive from our common good, which is pleasure and happiness, and that we should avoid actions that lead us into pain. Unlike egoism, which stated that man should pursue his action for the intent of personal good, utilitarian, on the other hand, believes that we should act always to produce greatest good for the greatest number. But criticisms arise as it manifests inequality of choice and decision in society. Because come to think of it, in order for you to produce the greatest good, there must be someone willing to sacrifice just to attain the greatest good for the greatest number. This theory also criticized by some philosophers as it manifests its lack of support to the idea made by the minority as it shows false support to the majority. It shows in this theory that everyone is not treated equally. Rodolph Eckering also stated that the individual is less important to the group of people. This is similar to what Aristotle had stated that man is a social animal. Rodolph stated that a man cannot live alone with his own thoughts and actions in the society because in this theory, an act is only valid when it is made through a group of people and will give a good result that will satisfy to a lot of people. It means that if your decision only satisfy you, it is not relevant at the end of the day. You should always make actions, you should always make decisions that are good for a lot of people, even if it is not good for you, but if it is good for the greatest number of people, then it is relevant at the end of the day.
Theory based on equality, respect, and dignity of man. The theory based on equality and respect and dignity of man is one of the most important theories that become the standard of today's right. This theory stated that the liberty of everyone in the society should be given equally with respect. The government should treat all citizens and give all basic rights equally. For example of this, uh, rights were the right to be educated or right to education, healthcare benefits, freedom of speech, religion, fair trial in court, opportunities, and access to public service made by our public servants. So, preferred liberties such as freedom of speech, freedom of worship, right to join association, right of opinion requires special protection against the government interference since the government usually imposes restrictions. In terms of dignity of a man, Professor McDougall and Laswell followed the value-oriented approach to protect human dignity. They stated that in order for the state to protect the dignity of man, is the most important values must be shared in the humanity in order for them to achieve the human dignity. The values such as respect, power, knowledge, health, and security are the most common demand values of the man. It should be all available resources should be distributed equally and the human dignity must be protected.